Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so very much for joining us for our June edition of our monthly Microsoft Federal Business Applications webinar. My name is Craig Harris, and I am a technical specialist with Microsoft Federal's Business Applications team. So our agenda for today, we're going to go through this cycle of events and kind of touch on a few different things. Mainly the community overview. We're going to give some updates of different things happening around our community. I'll give some product updates of new things that are coming to our government sovereign clouds. And then the main event for today, we are going to be joined by Josh Stillman, who's providing a voice from the field at CBP, where he'll be able to go over and highlight how his team has leveraged the Power Platform for solving the challenges that they face every day in providing services to our government. And at the very end, we'll do a Q&A session where we'll open it up. Folks can come off of mute, and then you can ask questions to Microsoft or to Josh, and we'll go from there and navigate that. So just an FYI, we are going to be recording this session. We do load these on YouTube after the fact. But when we get to the Q&A session at the end of this, we will not record that. We will disable all the recording devices, and then you can come off of mute and speak freely and share that way. So do want to go over our Microsoft Digital Event Code of Conduct, and there's a lot of wording here, but suffice it to say, what this is communicating is that we do want to make sure that we have a very respectful and empowering event today to where everyone can feel comfortable sharing and asking questions. And if we do have any sort of disruptive or disrespectful behavior, we do reserve the right to remove folks from this meeting. But just wanted to make sure that we were upfront about that. And also, we want to be completely transparent in that in registering for this event, we did capture your email and your name, but we want to make sure that everyone is comfortable and understands what we do with that information. Specifically, we use that to follow up with you, including provide the link to the recording for this session once we get it done and posted here in the next couple of days. And we'll also use that as kind of a mailer list so that we can keep you informed on upcoming webinar dates and registration information for those sessions. And if there are Power Platform or Dynamics 365 specific product updates for our sovereign clouds, we can communicate that through that medium as well. You can always opt out of getting these emails. So if you could just reply directly on that thread whenever you see them and let us know that you want to be removed from those distributions in the future, and we'll make sure to remove you from all future correspondence and you won't have to worry about it anymore. And if you have any questions, we do post our privacy statement here in this link. So feel free to check that out and read it, but just know that we are very engaged in ensuring that your privacy remains germane to you, and we don't use your information in any way that you're not comfortable with in sharing that out. So how to ask questions. We have the chat open and free now, so everyone should be able to chime in and ask a question in the chat. We do have folks from our Microsoft team that are monitoring that, that will answer your questions as quickly as we can. And if we need to ask Josh to pause for a moment and ask something, we do reserve that for the end, where we're going to take everyone off of mute and then allow you to raise your hand and then ask a question. And again, remember, during that portion, it will not be recorded, so please feel free to go ahead and raise your hand and ask. A couple of updates of, just things that we like to reiterate around the community. We do have a federal GitHub repo where we store all sorts of useful information, including white papers. There's also solution demos in there that you can use as accelerators to download and install today to get started in using Power Apps. But we also use it as a front end for all of our recordings and coordination for these webinar events. So anytime that we have an upcoming webinar, we'll post the registration link there in GitHub. And we'll also provide links to all of our past recordings of previous sessions where you can go back and view all of our sessions that are hosted in YouTube, and then see how we've answered different problems throughout the community. And we make sure to put time hacks in each of those videos. So if you want to skip over someone like me talking in the intro, you can just jump directly to what the mainline event would be, and then view the video there and feel free to share. It's public. So please feel free to check that out. So just to kind of orient on where we are and when we talk about the biz apps or business application productivity suite, what do we, Microsoft, mean by that? What are we talking about? So everything sort of spans within Microsoft Solutions a wide gamut of things, right? We start with the out-of-the-box applications that are pretty much ubiquitous with doing office work today, and that would be Outlook, PowerPoint, Excel, Word, right? These are the solutions that we all use and know today, but these are very much bought off the shelf. They simply work. You don't have to do anything with them to make that work or to use it in your business operations. Then at the other end of that spectrum, we have our completely custom app dev environments, and these will be all of our Azure custom space. So anything within web apps or development kits, containerized applications, or of course anything that you can do with AML and in GitHub, all of that would be on that end of the spectrum. But when we talk about business applications, we're really talking about a central space, right? Something that bridges the gap between these two extremes. And the one that we like to talk about the most in Power Platform with our, low code, no code app dev environment, that very much sits towards the middling but custom experience, but done in a low code, no code way that is very much drag and drop form functionality. But then also in the middle, but just to the left of that, more towards the out of the box, is our first party solutions that we've built using the Power Platform, namely our Dynamics 365 suite. And there are different flavors of this, customer service, field service, all purpose built as an accelerator that you can buy off the shelf to get up and running sooner within your ecosystem and within your solutions. So we're very much focusing on this centerpiece, right? That is the biz apps environment that we like to talk about. And we like to highlight this because we want to show our accreditation in the security realm, but also highlight our geo-redundancy spread throughout the United States with our GS sovereign clouds, right? So you can see all the different locations here and also the accreditation as it speaks to our GCC clouds, GCC High as well, and also our DoD offering. And if you wanted to find out any more information on that, we do have a link down at the bottom that you can also find in our Microsoft Docs public suite where you can get more information on that. But we meet you where you are. So to go into some product updates that have happened in the last month and also community updates, wanted to highlight a few things. First, we've gotten a lot of questions on our team within the Federal Biz Apps of pay-as-you-go. And if you don't know what pay-as-you-go is, this is something that's available today in the commercial side, but it's an idea of only paying for the Power Apps usage that you're actually going to end up using, which is a really empowering way of coming at this, assuming that you already have an Azure subscription, right? So the way that this would work is you tie your Power Apps environment to an Azure subscription, and then based off of your usage within that environment, that's how much you get billed. And there are different meters and metrics that would go into that so that you can project what your overall cost would look like. But this is really going to be a very unlocking thing for organizations that may have seasonal applications, right? If there's something, say performance reviews, right, that you want to do that in a Power App solution, but you don't necessarily want to pay for having that licensing throughout the year. It's only going to be a temporary thing. Well, folks will scale and you'll have a peak volume in certain months, and then that largely falls off. Pay as you go would be a great opportunity to implement there, right? We do anticipate that this is coming soon to our US sovereign clouds. But in the meantime, if you want to know more information, we've provided the Microsoft Docs link there where you can learn more about pay-as-you-go as an overview. And also our team with the customer advisory team, PowerCat, did a really great YouTube video over what this looks like, where they demonstrate how you would set this up and how you get started. But it's a very exciting piece of functionality that will be coming soon to the US sovereign clouds. But we'll make sure to keep you posted. But if you have any questions or anything you want to know more, feel free to use those links or reach out to us directly, and we'll expand on it as we can. Another thing that I want to highlight, and he's actually on this call, so I hope his ears are turning red as we're discussing him. But Judd Gravel and our team did this really awesome video where he shows integrating Azure DevOps and the Power Platform via Power Automate. And he gives a couple of examples of doing this using Dynamics 365 and then doing a read write between the two. Like if you create something in Azure DevOps, it would appear within Dataverse and Surface through Dynamics 365, and vice versa, right? Things that you can do in Dynamics or Power Apps that would write to Dataverse can also be used to trigger updates in Azure DevOps. We give a couple of examples in that demonstration, but do please look at the triggers and actions that Joe highlights in that video, because it's really the sky's the limit. You can imagine if you're doing, for example, O&M operations where you have a ticketing system, this could be a good way to empower Azure DevOps to communicate between your two platforms. It's a really neat piece of functionality, and Judd did a great job in that demonstration. So please check out the YouTube video link here. You can find it on our Federal Biz Apps channel, but it's a really great demonstration. Another update we wanted to give. So some time ago, back in December, I believe it was, and we have the YouTube link there. Actually, our very first webinar session for our Federal Biz Apps team, we did a demonstration of what using an easy button with external data of connecting an Access database directly to Dataverse in the cloud. And the example that we did back in December was in GCC, right? But we were able to confirm today that this is also available in GCC High, provided that your client is using the most up-to-date version. You'll be able to go to external data and then connect your Access database to an environment in GCC High to provide an easy button to migrate from an Access database to the cloud without blowing up your existing platform. It will maintain that link and maintain your existing tables. It will simply create an alternative online version of that table or tables along with their relationships, and then make that manifest as well in Dataverse so that you can start building an application on top of that. And if you're curious what that looks like, again, please check out our video link here for YouTube. We did a demonstration of what it looks like to set this up and what it looks like in action. So please check it out there, but go ahead and get started in GCC High today in leveraging this functionality. And we do always like to reference this link. We do have a cloud functional parity document that you can get to by going to this aka.ms/WAC BAP functionality parity or functional parity. That's a quick link that you can use to download a PDF that we try and update monthly. There is a June 2022 version of this that is live today. It's public facing, and our product team keeps this up to date so that you can know what functionality exists in one cloud and how that is translating to the higher clouds of GCC and GCC High. So please check that out there, and we'll update that as we go. And we also take this community very seriously. We very much want to make sure that what we're demonstrating is something that resonates with you all. It's something that you're interested in seeing and that is going to be empowering and unlocking for your organizations. So to that end, we do have a quick link here where you can go to a form and provide survey feedback for us to let us know what you'd be interested in seeing next. We do review these as a team. We do use these to coordinate what sessions we're going to do next. And actually, Josh Stillman, who's on the line today and is going to be demonstrating how his team uses Power Apps, he actually provided through this medium a really great link and session that we did over SAP and what that would look like integrating with Power Apps. So we do review these. We do use these to decide what our topics are going to look like. So do please feel free to do that. And we look forward to seeing your feedback and your opinions also on how we're doing, if there's different ways for us to do these sessions. And with that, I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to turn it over to the man of the hour here, Joshua Stillman, who is a Border Patrol agent working with Programs and Mission and Readiness Operations Division at CBP. And he's going to go over how his team has leveraged Power Apps to unlock the potential of his teams in a low-code, no-code environment. So with that, please take it away, Josh.
Hello, everyone. To start, for those of you unfamiliar, the application that was created by our team was called the CBP Administrative Systems Access Portal, or ASAP for short. And the purpose of this is to take a lot of either separate database or Excel file or pen and paper processes that were rather outdated and start wrapping them all up into a single application that manages staffing numbers, training requests, overtime, temporary assignments, leave requests, inventory, all these different things into a single platform. And today I'm going to actually focus on the components aspect of this because the application uses so many different screens, basically using components to standardize the actual layout for headers, footers, navigation, and some other elements removes a lot of the very difficult coding process that you would have to do copy and paste on every single screen. As a result, it minimizes the number of actual objects on a single screen to a more manageable amount. For instance, you can see when I go into the edit mode that both the header and the footer are a single object, but they show a lot of customized information as far as who the user is that's logged in, their access level to whatever module they're accessing, and then same thing, the header is going to be based off of the color is going to be based off of the user's organization. It's going to be different colors based on different users, whether or not you're United States Border Patrol or Office Field Operations or Air and Marine. The layout is going to change to a color scheme that is comfortable for that user they're used to seeing in their daily basis. For us, we use green. OFO tends to use a dark blue. And similarly, in the actual modules, this side navigation bar, while you see it all has functional buttons, but it's also same thing. It is set up in the scheme. It's basically limited to however many screens are within each module. That's how many buttons there are to navigate. And then every screen has both the back button and the menu button. But actually show how you create some of these, you can actually go to the component section here. And the first thing you have to do is when you create a new component, you have to say what size you want it to be. You can either use, in this case, as I did, the actual dimensions of the application itself, or you can have it be a set number of pixels. In this case, this is a side navigation, so I don't want it to be the entire screen. I want it to be a set 250 pixels. Similarly, you can add customized properties. In this case, I've got an access level text function because that's going to change based on the screen that you're logged into. Different screens have different access levels set on whether or not people have access to administrative level in staffing or the training module or different things. So in this case, this is a custom property. It's called access level. And basically the description is the access level of the current component. It's an input type and text. And you can add these kinds of custom properties to every single component to allow you to use variables for not only text, but dates, colors, basically any kind of data type that Power Apps can manage, you can use as a custom variable. The side navigation one is a lot more complicated. I have these default buttons all set up, and basically I have them separated into, first of all, the organization, which sets the both the colors as well as the visibility on some buttons, the navigation access type, which is the text, the number of screens that are within the module, which is going to show how many buttons are going to show up as visible. And then the current screen, which is going to be whatever current screen this particular component is on at the time. So it's going to disable that button so you don't have to navigate to the same screen you're on. And within all these buttons actually have the screen one is going to refer to whatever screen is associated with the first button. The name is going to be the text that's going to show up on the first button. And then the access level, whether or not the user has the proper access to have that button enabled. And then basically the menu and back buttons are static. They're determination, they're always visible and they're always going to do the same thing. And to see this in action, you'll see right here, this is the staffing screen. There are a total of 5 different screens within this module. And by default right now, the staffing roster screen is what we're on, and you see the roster screen is what's disabled. Similarly, if I go to the trainees tab, it's now going to be the trainees tab that's disabled. And actually look at how these are laid out as far as the properties. The organization is going to be determined by this variable that I have that's set when the app loads. So it's going to tell me in this case that I'm USBP. And that's going to set my access to certain things. It's going to tell the buttons what color to use, and so on and so forth. Similarly, you see the screen number is set to 5. That's why 5 of these buttons are in fact visible. The current screen is staffing trainees, and that's why the staffing trainees button is disabled, because it is the same as this here. Similarly, in this case, all of these functions are turned on by default. However, some of the screens I actually have disabled, and I can show you that on the settings screens. In the case of the settings screens, for the management tab, you'll see there's a formula determining the access level. In this case, it's going to look up if your system access equals admin, then it's going to show up as true. Otherwise, it's going to show up as false. So because the access to this is false, the button is going to show up as disabled if you do not have administrative access. And similarly, again, the screen number is 4, and so on and so forth. So basically, I have all these things. In this case, for the header, you've got the header text. So it keeps the same layout, style, font, color, all that is the same. And you just change what it actually says, in this case, settings user profile. And then it keeps the icons, the color, all that. Similarly, down here, you can see that the access level is now set as system access and system region, which shows me as admin and agency-wide. And there are quite a number of pre-made components that are much more complicated on on GitHub repositories. There may or may not be some on the federal one. The calendars one is actually one I grabbed from the public GitHub that has the calendar component already created, but it's already set to the point where you can manually change. You can change color, whether or not you can set a range, and if you can set a range, it's going to show you the selected date color, selected date fill, start and end dates, both the default and the actual start and end dates as an output property. And one of the ways I actually have used this as an output is on this other application that we have that does, in this case, master leave requests. So when I click the little calendar icon, it's going to pop up that component for the date, and it's going to give me a date range that I can select. So I can select a date range. And in this case, I've got the select button, which is going to take this date range, and it's going to set a property based off of the calendar's start date and the calendar's end date, and it's going to return that and generate them within the form. So in this case, you hit select, and it's going to add the start and end dates to that actual form entry. And you can use this in any variety of manner, anytime you either need to select a date, because what we found is actually the date picker that is by innate to mobile. First of all, you can only select a single date using it. And I found on mobile, anytime that you accidentally tap or scroll past it, it will close the date picker. So as a result, this gives you a lot more customizability on how you select dates. You don't have to use two separate, one start, one end date, and have two separate calendars pop up. In this case, you can set a date range using an existing tool. And then those would be the start date and end date output properties, which basically you take the selected dates and then you can take it out of the component and you can use it in variables. You can use it in forms, galleries, whatever else you need to use that property in. So one of the most important things for me has been making sure that all of the screens have the same layout. And it's easy to do with components because you can basically just make it app width and then just slap it on the top, slap it on the bottom, and then the side nav bar in between. So everything's in the exact same location. By default, they're all the same size, and they'll allow you to customize whatever property is appropriate for you, whether or not it's just something as simple as the text that's going to be displayed on each, to any number of formulas using access levels, colors, numbers, values, screen information, anything like that can actually be used. You can use Booleans, numbers, text, screens, colors. There's any type of data that can be stored in a variable in Power Apps can be used in your component as a property. So basically, I have a start screen that by default will set all of these properties by base, the user's username through Office 365, their access levels, whether or not they're on a desktop or a mobile device, the various locations, station sector, organization, title, full name, all these things as variables, so I don't have to generate them again in the app. And similarly, the access levels are set this way. And basically all I have to do for the footer property to grant the access level is reference these variables that I set for access. And then they can be used in the components and the rest of the application. That is basically all I have as far as how we use components to simplify a lot of the processes. And I guess back to you.
Okay, awesome. So one quick comment on that. So how have you found preparing the components, right? Like, has it been something that makes the preparation of your application much faster?
Oh, absolutely. It used to be prior to using this sidebar, every single item would have been manually entered. I'd have to make sure that they're aligned completely the same. In which case I'd have to either basically manually change the reference between where one button's Y value and height, and then basically use that as property for the next button, so on and so forth, as opposed to just using a single object for the actual navigation and just add all the properties into it. And it basically takes the process from somewhere close to an hour to maybe about 5 minutes.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Josh, for going through that. I'm going to take over screen share just right quick to do some closing remarks, and then we'll cut it over to the Q&A session. Just give me one moment. Okay, that's going to be it for our session today. And thank you again so very much for joining us. And thank you to Josh for the presentation for today. One quick note, we are going to be taking a break for the month of July to allow for everybody across the spectrum, both in our team and outwardly, to take some much deserved time off with your families and go away for the holidays for the summer break. But we are going to be back in August. And when we have that session scheduled and we have a topic picked, we'll make sure to broadcast that out. But please stay tuned with us, and we're looking forward to seeing everyone again in August. But that's going to be it for our session today. And again, thank you so very much, and hope everyone has a good rest of your week.